6 months of chasing ghosts through financial records had led me here, to a text message from an unknown number glowing on my phone screen at 9:30 on a Tuesday night. The message was brief, almost cryptic. Giordano's, 10 p.m. Bring nothing. Come alone. You want the proof. I stared at the words, my reflection ghosting across the dark window of my studio apartment. 28 years old, working 70-hour weeks as an investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune. And I was about to walk into what could either be the biggest break of my career or the stupidest decision of my life. The construction fraud case I'd been building connected shell companies to city contracts worth millions, but every lead had dried up. Every source had gone silent, until tonight. October in Chicago meant unpredictable weather, and as I grabbed my jacket, the first drops of rain began streaking down the glass. My best friend Hannah had texted earlier asking if I wanted to grab drinks, but I'd lied and said I was working late at the office. The truth was, I didn't want anyone knowing where I was going. Not until I knew what I was walking into. Giordano's was an upscale Italian restaurant in the financial district, the kind of place where politicians made backroom deals over $30 pasta and $200 bottles of wine. I'd never been inside. Couldn't afford it on my salary. The entire investigation had started when I noticed the same restaurant appearing on expense reports for 3 different construction executives, all on the same nights, all billing different companies. Coincidence didn't exist in my line of work. I took the red line downtown, watching my fellow passengers through the scratched window. A woman in scrubs nodded off against the pole, exhausted from her shift. 2 college kids laughed over something on a phone screen. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that the city they loved was rotting from the inside, built on bribes and falsified permits. The restaurant sat on a corner lot, its brick facade warm with golden light spilling from tall windows. Expensive cars lined the street. I checked my phone. 9:58. 2 minutes early. The rain had intensified during my walk from the station, soaking through my jacket despite my hurried pace. Water dripped from my hair as I stood across the street, studying the entrance. Something felt wrong. I'd developed an instinct for danger over the years, interviewing people who'd seen too much, asking questions that made powerful men nervous. That instinct was screaming now. 3 black SUVs were parked in a no-standing zone, their engines running, exhaust visible in the cold air. Security detail. But for whom? I should have turned around. Should have gone home, called the number back in the morning from a secure line. Instead, I crossed the street, dodging a taxi that honked angrily. The restaurant's heavy wooden door swung open as I approached, and a man in a dark suit emerged, speaking rapidly into a phone. He glanced at me, his eyes cold and assessing, before moving past. That's when I saw her. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, stood on the sidewalk near the entrance. She wore a pale yellow dress completely inappropriate for the weather, her dark curls plastered to her face by rain. She was alone, frozen, her eyes wide with something that looked like terror. "Hey," I called out, my reporter instincts momentarily overriding my caution. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The explosion of gunfire answered before she could. The sound was deafening, glass shattering as bullets punched through the restaurant's front windows. People inside screamed. The little girl stood completely still, paralyzed by fear, directly in the line of fire. I didn't think. Thinking would have meant hesitation, and hesitation would have meant death. I ran toward her, my shoes slipping on the wet pavement. 4 strides. 3. 2. I collided with her small body and wrapped my arms around her as we fell. My shoulder hit the concrete hard, pain exploding through my left side, but I kept rolling, using my momentum to drag us both behind a parked Lexus. The world had contracted to a series of snapshots. The girl's racing heartbeat against my chest. The acrid smell of gunpowder mixing with rain. More shots, so many I couldn't count them. Metal punching through metal as bullets found the car sheltering us. I pressed the girl's face into my shoulder, trying to shield her ears from the noise. One round hit the Lexus's rear quarter panel inches from my head. Another shattered the back window, raining safety glass down on us. A third punched through the door, and I felt something hot slice across my shoulder. The shootout lasted maybe 2 minutes. Maybe an eternity, Time had stopped meaning anything. The girl was crying silently, her small hands clutching my soaked jacket. I whispered to her. Words I don't remember. Promises I had no authority to make. You're safe. I've got you. You're going to be okay. When the shooting finally stopped, the silence was almost worse. My ears rang. Someone was shouting in Italian. Car alarms wailed. The girl's breathing had turned to sharp, panicked gasps. I shifted slightly, trying to see if we could run, and pain lanced through my shoulder. When I touched it, my fingers came away red. Lily! The voice cut through the chaos, raw with desperation. Lily! Heavy footsteps pounded toward us. I tightened my arms around the girl, protecting her, until a man dropped to his knees beside the car. He was large, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that strained against his tailored charcoal suit. Dark hair, slightly disheveled. His face was all sharp angles, a strong jaw set with tension, but it was his eyes that caught me, even through my shock and pain. Light brown, almost amber in the streetlights, currently wild with fear. Lily, he breathed, and his hands were gentle, so gentle as he reached for her. Baby, are you hurt? The girl, Lily, launched herself at him, still crying. He gathered her up, checking her for injuries with practiced efficiency, his large hands surprisingly tender as they moved over her arms, her legs, her face. She wasn't hurt, not a scratch. Miracle didn't seem like a strong enough word. Only after satisfying himself that his daughter was unharmed did the man's attention shift to me. I was still on the ground, half slumped against the Lexus's rear tire, rain mixing with something warmer running down my arm. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a cold that had nothing to do with the weather. You're bleeding, he said, his voice different now, controlled. The panic had been locked away behind something harder. I'm fine, I managed, though standing up proved that statement false. The world tilted sideways. Strong hands caught me before I hit the pavement. You're not fine. He was holding Lily with one arm and supporting me with the other, impossibly strong. You took shrapnel. Marcus. This last word was a command, directed at one of several men in dark suits who had materialized around us. Sir, we need to move. Police are 2 minutes out. Call Dr. Reese. Tell him we're coming in with 2 patients. 1 pediatric, 1 adult female with a shoulder wound. The man's voice was steady. Someone used to giving orders in crisis situations. He looked down at me, and for a moment, that iron control slipped. What's your name? Jessica, I whispered. The streetlights were developing halos. Everything felt distant. Jessica. He repeated it like he was memorizing it. I'm Anthony. You saved my daughter's life. I wanted to say something, to ask what had just happened, why people had been shooting, who the hell he was, but my knees gave out. He caught me again, and this time I couldn't seem to get my legs to work properly. Lily was crying harder now, reaching for me with one small hand. Is the lady going to die, Papa? No, baby. She's going to be fine. I promise. Anthony's face swam in and out of focus above me. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Can you walk? I don't think so. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. He made a decision. In one fluid motion, he passed Lily to one of his men and swept me up. The movement sent fresh agony through my shoulder, and I gasped. I know. I'm sorry. Stay with me, Jessica. His face was close to mine now. I could see a small scar above his left eyebrow, the precise line of his jaw. Stay awake. What happened? I managed. Who were they? Later. Right now you need a doctor. He was moving fast, carrying me toward one of the black SUVs. Marcus, bring Lily. Alicio, handle the police. Anthony, one of the men started. She's a civilian. She saved my daughter. Anthony's voice went cold as winter. That makes her under my protection. Anyone have a problem with that? No one did. The SUV's interior was warm. Leather seats soft beneath me as Anthony laid me down across the back seat. Lily climbed in after us, her small face streaked with tears and rain. She took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so small. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving me. I tried to smile at her, but everything was getting fuzzy around the edges. Anthony was talking on the phone, giving terse instructions to someone. I caught fragments. 10 minutes. Prepare, or if needed. I don't care what it costs. His hand found mine, large and warm, carefully avoiding the shoulder that was now throbbing with each heartbeat. Jessica, stay awake. Look at me. I forced my eyes to focus on his face. Who are you? Someone who owes you everything. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, the gesture oddly intimate. I'm going to take care of you. I swear it. The SUV pulled away from the curb with a screech of tires. Through the tinted windows, I saw red and blue lights flooding the scene. Police cars, ambulances, people streaming out of the restaurant. The chaos we were leaving behind. I was supposed to meet someone, I mumbled, fighting to keep my eyes open. A source about the construction fraud. Anthony went very still. What construction fraud? The permits, the shell companies. I've been tracking them for months. I knew I was saying too much. That shock and blood loss were loosening my tongue. But I couldn't seem to stop. Someone wanted to meet. Someone who said they had proof. Jesus Christ. Anthony's hand tightened on mine. You were set up, Jessica. This was an ambush, and they used you to get to me. The words didn't make sense. I'd never met this man before. Why? Because you're a journalist investigating the wrong people. And they knew I'd be at that restaurant tonight with my daughter. His jaw clenched. They tried to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They failed on both counts. Lily made a small sound of distress. Anthony immediately softened, pulling her against his side, while keeping his other hand wrapped around mine. It's okay, baby. We're safe now, thanks to Jessica. The 7-year-old looked at me with solemn dark eyes. Are you going to be my friend now? I managed a weak smile. I think I'd like that. Good. She nestled closer to her father but didn't let go of my hand. Papa's friends are always safe. Nobody hurts Papa's friends. The statement should have been childish nonsense. Instead, it sounded like she was repeating something she'd learned from experience. My reporter brain tried to process that, to fit it into a framework that made sense, but consciousness was slipping away. Jessica. Anthony's voice cut through the fog. I need you to understand something. You saw what happened tonight. You're going to have questions. But right now you need to trust me. Can you do that? I should have said no. Should have demanded answers. Demanded to be taken to a regular hospital. Demanded to know what I'd stumbled into. Instead, I found myself nodding. This man, this stranger, had terror in his eyes when he thought his daughter was in danger. He'd held me like I was something precious rather than a complication. He'd promised to protect me, and some instinct deeper than logic told me he meant it. I trust you, I whispered. Something fierce and protective blazed in his eyes. Then close your eyes. When you wake up, I'll explain everything. Promise? I promise. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something meant only for me. You saved the most important person in my world tonight. I owe you a debt I can never repay. But I'm going to spend as long as it takes making sure you never regret the choice you made. The SUV took a sharp turn. Buildings I didn't recognize flashed past the windows. Lily was humming softly, a lullaby I half remembered from childhood. Anthony's thumb continued its gentle rhythm across my knuckles. The pain in my shoulder had faded to a distant throb, my body's alarm system finally shutting down now that help was close. I let my eyes drift closed. The last thing I felt was Anthony's grip tightening on my hand, anchoring me to consciousness for one more moment. Rest now, he murmured. I've got you. And despite every rational reason to be terrified, despite the blood and the bullets and the complete upheaval of my ordinary life, I believed him. Consciousness returned in pieces. First came awareness of softness beneath me, cotton sheets with a thread count I'd never experienced. Then the smell, antiseptic mixed with something floral. Finally, the throbbing in my shoulder, dulled but present, like a toothache I couldn't ignore. I forced my eyes open. The room swam into focus, all cream walls and natural light filtering through gauze curtains. This wasn't a hospital room, or at least not like any I'd seen before. The space was twice the size of my apartment, with a sitting area, what looked like original artwork on the walls, and medical equipment that belonged in a private clinic, rather than Cook County General. You're awake. I turned my head too quickly, wincing at the pull in my shoulder. Anthony Caruso sat in an armchair beside the bed, looking like he hadn't slept. His suit jacket was gone, white shirt rolled to his elbows, tie loosened. Dark stubble shadowed his jaw, those light brown eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to look away. How long? My voice came out raspy. 18 hours. You needed surgery for the shrapnel. Dr. Reese is one of the best trauma surgeons in the city. He stood, moving to pour water from a crystal pitcher on the nightstand. Drink slowly. I accepted the glass, noting how his hand remained steady while mine trembled. The water was cold and perfect, and I finished half of it before my brain caught up to the situation. Where am I? My private medical facility. About 20 minutes from where the shooting happened. He settled back into the chair, maintaining a careful distance. Before you ask, no. This isn't a hospital in the traditional sense. I have doctors on retainer for situations that require discretion. Discretion. I tested the word. Like when someone gets shot outside your daughter's favorite restaurant. Something flickered across his face. Giordano's wasn't her favorite. It was supposed to be secure. I had 3 men inside, 2 watching the street. Someone knew exactly where we'd be and when. The memories came rushing back. Gunfire. Lily's terrified face. The feeling of bullets punching through metal inches from my head. The O'Sullivan family. You mentioned them in the car. I did. Anthony leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And now we need to talk about what that means for you. Dread pooled in my stomach. I want to go home. Jessica. He said my name like it cost him something. Your apartment was broken into last night. While you were in surgery, men forced the lock. Went through everything. Your files, your computer, your records. They took what they wanted and left a message. The room tilted. What kind of message? The kind that makes it clear they know who you are and what you've been investigating. His jaw tightened. The construction fraud case, the shell companies. You were getting close to something they couldn't afford to have exposed. How do you know what I was investigating? Because those same shell companies have been used to frame me for money laundering I didn't commit. He pulled out his phone, swiped through something, then turned the screen toward me. It showed a document, a bank transfer I recognized from my own research. The O'Sullivan organization has been systematically building a case to bring federal attention to my businesses. Your investigation threatened to expose their actual operations. I stared at the evidence, my reporter's mind automatically cataloging details. So they set me up. The anonymous source, the meeting at the restaurant. Yes, they wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Eliminate me and my daughter, discredit or silence a journalist who was getting too close. His expression went cold. They failed on both counts because you threw yourself between a 7-year-old and a gunfight. My phone. I needed my phone. I tried to sit up, gasping when pain lanced through my shoulder. Anthony was there instantly, his hand gentle but firm against my uninjured arm. Don't move like that. You have 14 stitches and Dr. Reese will have my head if you tear them. He reached for the nightstand, producing my phone. It's been ringing constantly. Your friend Hannah has called 11 times. Hannah. Oh, God. I grabbed the phone, saw the missed calls, the increasingly frantic text messages. The most recent was from 3 hours ago. Jess, please tell me you're okay. Men came to the Tribune asking about you. Everyone's freaking out. Call me. I need to call her back. Use my phone. Yours might be traced. Anthony handed me a different device, sleek and black. Press 1. I had someone contact her on a secure line, tell her you were safe but couldn't talk. She's been waiting. Hannah answered on the first ring. Jessica? It's me. My throat closed up hearing her voice. I'm okay. I'm safe. What the hell is going on? The Tribune is in lockdown. James suspended you pending an investigation. Something about a shooting in the financial district last night, and men showing up here asking if we knew where you were. Hannah's words tumbled over each other. They weren't police, Jess. They were something else. I looked at Anthony, who could clearly hear every word. His expression remained neutral, but his hands had curled into fists. Hannah, listen to me. You need to go to your parents' house in Milwaukee. Today. Right now. What? Why? Because I'm involved in something dangerous, and anyone connected to me might be at risk. Please, just trust me. Tears burned behind my eyes. I need to know you're safe. There was a long pause. When Hannah spoke again, her voice had gone quiet. "You're scaring me. I know. I'm scared too. But I promise I'll explain everything once this is over. Just go to Milwaukee and stay there until I tell you it's safe. Jess. Please, Hannah. You're my best friend. I can't have you in danger because of me." Another pause. Then a shaky breath. Okay, I'll go. My parents have been bugging me to visit anyway. But you have to promise you'll call me. Every day. I promise. I ended the call before she could ask more questions I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking as I handed the phone back to Anthony. "She's going to Milwaukee." "Good. That's smart." He stood, moving to the window. "Your editor also called. James Sullivan. He left a message saying you've been suspended from the Tribune, effective immediately, pending an investigation into your involvement in last night's incident. The hits just kept coming. They're making it sound like I did something wrong. They're protecting themselves. A Tribune journalist witnessed a mob hit. That brings federal attention they can't afford." Anthony turned back to me. "I need to be honest with you about what happens next. The O'Sullivan family knows you were there. They know you saved Lily, and they know you saw their faces. So I'm a witness. You're more than that. You're someone who complicated their plan." He moved back to the chair, sitting forward so our eyes were level. "I can offer you protection, a secure location, resources, time to figure out your next move. But I need you to understand what you're walking into if you accept." "What am I walking into?" "My world, which is complicated, dangerous, and not something you can easily leave once you're part of it." His gaze never wavered. "I run a family business that operates in gray areas of the law. I won't lie to you about that. But I also have resources that can keep you safe when traditional law enforcement can't." My head was pounding. This was insane. Accepting protection from a man who just admitted to criminal activity. But what were my alternatives? Go back to an apartment that had been broken into? Wait for the O'Sullivan family to make another attempt? Hope that a suspension from the Tribune meant I was safe? "Just for a week," I heard myself say. "Until things calm down. Until I can figure out what to do." Something like relief crossed Anthony's face. "A week. That's fair. I have a property in Lake Forest about 40 minutes from here. It's secure, private. Lily will be there, and we have staff who can provide anything you need. I need to see my apartment first. See what was taken. That's not advisable." "I don't care." I pushed myself up, gritting my teeth against the pain. Those were years of work, research that could expose corruption across multiple city departments. "I need to know what they took." Anthony studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll arrange an escort. But we leave as soon as Dr. Reese clears you, and we don't stay long." 2 hours later, after the doctor examined my shoulder and reluctantly agreed I could be mobile, I was in the back of another black SUV. Anthony sat beside me, while Marcus drove, and another man I didn't recognize rode in the passenger seat. Both were armed. I could see the bulge of holsters beneath their jackets. My neighborhood looked different in daylight, shabbier somehow. The building where I'd lived for 3 years needed paint. Trash had collected against the curb. Anthony's security detail made us look like we were visiting from another planet. "Stay close," Anthony said as we entered the building. He'd insisted on coming up with me, leaving Marcus and the other man to watch the street. My apartment door had been repaired, but not well. The frame was cracked where the lock had been forced. Inside was worse. They'd torn the place apart. My desk drawers hung open. Contents scattered. The filing cabinet where I'd kept hard copies of everything was empty. Even my bulletin board had been stripped, every photo and document gone. I stood in the center of the wreckage, feeling violated in a way I hadn't when I was shot. This was my home, my work, my life. "Jessica." Anthony's voice was gentle. "We should go. 3 years," I whispered. 3 years of research. Gone. Not gone. They took it because you were close to something real. That means it exists, and it can be found again. He touched my elbow carefully. "But not here. This place isn't safe." I was about to agree when my phone buzzed. The screen showed a text from a number I didn't recognize. "We know where you live. We know who your friends are. Stop looking. Last warning." Anthony had seen it too. His face went hard. We're leaving. Now." We made it down 2 flights of stairs before we heard the smash of breaking glass. Anthony immediately pushed me behind him, his hand going to a gun I hadn't known he was carrying. Marcus appeared at the bottom of the stairs, weapon drawn. "Someone just threw a brick through the windshield," he reported. Message painted on it. We emerged onto the street to find my car, my ancient Honda that barely ran, completely destroyed. All 4 tires had been slashed, the windows were broken, and across the hood in red spray paint, "Watch your back." People had gathered to stare. A woman I recognized from the 2nd floor had her phone out, filming. This would be all over social media within an hour. Jessica Turner, suspended Tribune journalist, now connected to organized crime and property destruction. My phone rang. James, my editor. I answered on autopilot. "Jessica, where are you?" He didn't sound angry. He sounded worried. "Outside my apartment. Someone just vandalized my car." "Christ. Listen, you need to understand the position the Tribune is in. We have to distance ourselves from whatever you're involved in. I'm sorry, but the suspension stands pending a full investigation. For your safety and ours. I understand." And I did. The Tribune couldn't afford to be associated with mob violence. "If you need anything..." He paused. "Be careful, Jessica. Whatever story you were chasing, it's bigger than either of us realized." He hung up. I stared at my destroyed car, at the crowd of neighbors filming everything, at the message that was really a threat. Anthony stood beside me, his presence solid and somehow reassuring despite everything. "The offer still stands," he said quietly. 1 week. Safe location. Time to think. Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, but some are better than others. My phone buzzed again. "Hannah, on the train to Milwaukee. Parents are picking me up at the station. Stay safe. Love you." At least she was safe. That was something. 1 week? I agreed, feeling the last of my resistance crumble. "But I want answers. About who you are, what the O'Sullivan family wants, all of it. You'll have them." Anthony gestured to the SUV. "Let's get you somewhere secure. This neighborhood is compromised." As we pulled away from my ruined car and invaded apartment, I watched everything I'd built in Chicago recede in the side mirror. My job was suspended. My home was destroyed. My best friend had fled the city because of me. In less than 24 hours, my entire life had been dismantled. And the only person offering to help was a man who admitted he lived outside the law. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt a strange clarity settling over me. I'd spent years chasing corruption, trying to expose the rot beneath Chicago's surface. Now I was being pulled into the heart of it. And maybe that was exactly where I needed to be, to finally understand the truth. Anthony's hand rested on the seat between us, not touching me but close. A reminder that I wasn't alone in this, even though I barely knew him. Even though trusting him might be the biggest mistake of my life. "We'll figure this out," he said, as if reading my thoughts. "I promise you that." I wanted to believe him. God help me, I did. The mansion in Lake Forest was nothing like I'd imagined. Set back from the road behind iron gates and mature oak trees, the estate sprawled across what must have been acres of manicured grounds. The main house was 3 stories of pale stone and tall windows, elegant without being ostentatious. As we pulled up the circular drive, I caught sight of armed men positioned discreetly around the property. Security, but the kind that blended into the landscape. "This is where you live?" I asked as Anthony helped me out of the SUV, careful of my injured shoulder. "One of the places. This is the safest." He guided me up stone steps to massive wooden doors that opened before we reached them. A woman in her 50s stood in the entrance, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, her expression warm but assessing. "This is Maria," Anthony said. "She manages the household. Maria, this is Jessica Turner. She'll be staying with us for a while. Welcome, Miss Turner." Maria's handshake was firm but gentle. "Your room is ready on the 2nd floor. Mr. Caruso mentioned you'd need quiet and rest." That first day passed in a haze of exhaustion and pain medication. My room was larger than my entire apartment had been, decorated in soft grays and creams with French doors that opened onto a small balcony overlooking the gardens. I slept most of the afternoon, waking only when Maria brought soup and fresh bread that I barely touched. Lily appeared in my doorway around sunset, still wearing her school uniform, a blue plaid jumper over a white shirt. She clutched a stuffed rabbit that looked well-loved. "Can I come in?" Her voice was small, uncertain. Of course. I pushed myself up against the pillows, wincing. She climbed onto the chair near the bed, legs swinging. "Papa said you need to rest because you got hurt saving me. Your papa's right about the resting part. Does it hurt a lot?" Her dark eyes were serious, too serious for a 7-year-old. "Some, but I'll be okay." I studied her face, seeing Anthony in the shape of her jaw, the intensity of her gaze. "How are you doing? That was pretty scary." Lily hugged her rabbit tighter. "I have nightmares sometimes. But Papa says nightmares can't hurt you. Only real things can. And he makes sure real things don't hurt me." The matter-of-fact way she said it broke something inside me. This child had learned too young that the world was dangerous, that safety required constant vigilance and armed guards. "Your papa seems like he takes very good care of you." "He does." She smiled then, bright and genuine. "He said you're brave. Are you going to stay with us forever?" "Just for a little while, until things get safer." "Oh." She looked disappointed. "I hoped you'd stay. Papa needs someone brave. And I liked when you sang to me. In the car, when I was scared. Do you remember?" I didn't, actually. The whole night was fragments, pieces that didn't quite fit together. But I nodded anyway. "I remember. Will you sing to me again sometime?" "If you want me to." That seemed to satisfy her. She hopped down from the chair, then turned back at the door. "I'm glad you're here, Jessica, even if it's just for a little while." After she left, I lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. Day 1 in Anthony Caruso's world, and already the lines between victim and participant were blurring. The second day, I felt more human. The pain in my shoulder had dulled to a persistent ache, manageable without the heavy medication. I made my way downstairs in the late morning, finding the house quiet except for the distant sound of voices from somewhere deeper in the property. Maria appeared as if summoned, offering breakfast and coffee in a sun-filled kitchen that would have made any chef weep with envy. I ate mechanically, my mind already working through what I needed to do next. The anonymous source. The number that had lured me to that restaurant. I pulled out the phone Anthony had given me and dialed it from memory. The tone was wrong before anyone answered. That flat electronic sound that meant the number was no longer in service. Disconnected, or never real to begin with. "Damn it," I muttered. "Problem?" Anthony's voice made me jump. He stood in the kitchen doorway, dressed more casually than I'd seen him before. Dark jeans and a gray Henley that emphasized his build. He looked tired. Shadows under those amber eyes. The number that texted me. The source that wanted to meet. "It's dead. They would have burned it immediately after the attempt failed." He moved to pour himself coffee. "Professional operators don't leave trails." So it was definitely a setup. They knew I'd been investigating the construction fraud, knew I'd respond to an offer of proof, which means someone inside your investigation circle talked. Or someone's been monitoring your communications for weeks. He leaned against the counter watching me. The O'Sullivan family has resources, connections in places you wouldn't expect. My stomach turned. Someone I'd talked to, someone who knew what I was working on, had sold me out. I need to warn my other sources, the people who've been helping me. Can't do that. Any contact you make could be traced back to them, put them in more danger. Anthony's voice was firm, but not unkind. For now, silence keeps them safer than a warning would. I hated it, but he was right. I tried Hannah's phone next, needing to hear her voice, to know she'd made it to Milwaukee safely. The call went straight to voicemail. She'd probably turned off her phone or was already at her parents' house, keeping a low profile like I'd asked. "She's smart," Anthony said, reading my expression. "Going dark is the right move." "I know. I just hate that she had to run because of me. She ran because dangerous people are looking for you. That's not the same as it being your fault." He set down his coffee. "You didn't create this situation, Jessica. You stumbled into something that was already happening. By the third day, I was going stir-crazy. The mansion was beautiful, the grounds were peaceful, but I felt like a prisoner in a gilded cage. I found Anthony in what appeared to be a home office, speaking rapid Italian into his phone. He held up one finger when he saw me, finishing his conversation before hanging up. "I need to work," I said without preamble. "I can't just sit around. I'll lose my mind." "What kind of work?" "My investigation. I can reconstruct most of it from memory if I have access to a computer and the internet." I saw his hesitation. "Look, I understand security concerns, but I'm a journalist. Research is what I do. I need to feel useful." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll have a laptop brought to your room. Clean machine, secure connection. But I need you to understand that anything you access online creates a potential trail. I'll be careful. Public databases only. Nothing that requires Tribune credentials. Fair." He stood, moving around the desk. "There's something else you should see. Since you're going to be here for a while, you might as well understand how things work." He led me through the house to a section I hadn't explored yet. We passed a large dining room where a woman was polishing silver, descended a short flight of stairs, and emerged into what looked like a command center. Computer monitors lined one wall, showing various security camera feeds from around the property. 2 men sat at workstations, one speaking quietly into a headset. "We monitor everything within a 2-mile radius," Anthony explained. "Anyone approaches the property, we know about it. The gates are reinforced steel. The windows are bulletproof. The house has a safe room in the basement that could withstand a direct assault for hours. You're expecting an attack. I'm prepared for one. There's a difference." He gestured to the screens. "Watch." I saw the gardens, the driveway, the perimeter fence. And there, in one frame, Lily played on a swing set under the watchful eye of a man who definitely wasn't a nanny. She laughed, carefree despite the armed guard standing 10 feet away. "This is her life," I said quietly. "Constant protection. Never really free. This is her life alive." Anthony's voice went hard. "The alternative is what almost happened 2 nights ago. So yes, she has guards. Yes, we monitor everything, because the price of freedom isn't worth her safety." I watched Lily swing higher, her dark curls flying. 7 years old and already living in a fortress. What kind of childhood was that? As if reading my thoughts, Anthony added, "She goes to a private school. She has friends, sleepovers, birthday parties. We try to give her as much normalcy as possible within the constraints of security. It's not perfect, but it's what we can offer." That night at dinner, I saw what he meant. The formal dining room seated 12, but only 3 of us sat at one end. The table set with china and crystal that probably cost more than my car used to be worth. Lily chattered about her day, a math test she'd aced, a friend who'd promised to share candy at recess. Anthony listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at her stories. For those moments, they were just a father and daughter sharing a meal. "Jessica's going to be working on her investigation," Anthony mentioned. "From here, with the security measures we discussed." Lily's face lit up. "Are you going to catch the bad guys?" "I'm going to try," I said. "That's what journalists do. We find the truth and tell people about it. Papa says truth is important. He says lies are how weak people hide." Anthony's expression flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe, mixed with concern. "That's right, baby. Truth matters." Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Anthony and I sat in a living room that managed to feel comfortable despite its elegance. He'd poured himself scotch, offered me wine that I'd declined in favor of water. My shoulder was throbbing again, a reminder that I was still healing. "I've been thinking about your investigation," he said. "The construction fraud, the shell companies. I might be able to help." "How?" "I have contacts in the FBI. Someone who's been building a case against the O'Sullivan organization for months. He might be interested in what you've found." My journalist instincts prickled. The FBI doesn't usually work with civilians on active investigations. They do when that civilian has information they need, and their own reasons for wanting the same targets taken down. He swirled his scotch. "Think about it. Your research threatened to expose O'Sullivan's money laundering operation disguised as construction fraud. My business interests have been systematically targeted by their organization, framed for crimes I didn't commit. We have aligned goals. You want to take them down. I want my daughter safe. I want to stop looking over my shoulder. If that means burning the O'Sullivan Empire to the ground, then yes, I want them taken down. His voice was matter of fact. No dramatic flourish. Just cold determination. I should have been frightened by that coldness. Instead, I found it oddly reassuring. This was a man who didn't make empty threats or false promises. When he said he'd protect me, he meant it with every resource at his disposal. I'll think about it, I said. That's all I ask. The 5th day started like the others, until it didn't. I was in my room, working on reconstructing my investigation notes on the laptop Anthony had provided, when Maria knocked on my door. Miss Turner? Mr. Caruso asked you to come downstairs. There's been news. The tone of her voice made my stomach drop. I followed her down to the office where Anthony stood with Marcus and another man I didn't recognize, all of them staring at a tablet. What happened? Anthony looked up, his expression grim. Your apartment building. There was an explosion 30 minutes ago. Fire department is on scene now. He turned the tablet toward me. The news footage showed flames pouring from the upper floors of my building, smoke billowing into the gray October sky. Emergency vehicles surrounded the structure. People in various states of distress stood on the sidewalk, wrapped in blankets, watching their homes burn. Was anyone hurt? My voice came out whisper thin. 2 residents taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. No fatalities reported yet. He paused. The fire started in your unit. Investigators are calling it suspicious. My legs went weak. I grabbed the edge of the desk for support. That building held families, working people, students. They could have died because someone wanted to send me a message. Hey, Anthony was there suddenly, his hand gentle on my uninjured arm. Look at me. This is not your fault. They could have killed innocent people, but they didn't. Because you weren't there. Because you're here, safe, and they're frustrated that they can't get to you. His grip tightened slightly. This was meant to intimidate you, make you feel guilty enough to surface. Don't give them that power. But all I could think about was Mrs. Park on the 2nd floor who always held the door for me. Mr. Rodriguez who played guitar on his balcony on summer evenings. The college kids who threw loud parties but were always apologetic the next day. Their homes were gone. Everything they owned, destroyed because of me. I need some air. I walked out without waiting for permission, through the house and into the back gardens. The October evening was cool, the sun setting in shades of orange and purple. I found a bench near a fountain and sat, wrapping my arms around myself. Everything I'd owned was gone. Not just the files and research, but personal things. Photos of my parents who died when I was 19. My mother's jewelry box. My father's books. The quilt my grandmother had made. Every physical connection to my past had just burned away, reduced to ash and smoke. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears on my face. 6 months of investigation. 3 years of building a life in Chicago. 28 years of accumulated memories. Gone. Jessica. Anthony sat beside me, not touching but close. He didn't say anything else. Just sat there as I cried for everything I'd lost. When I finally stopped, he handed me a handkerchief like something out of an old movie. I'm scared, I admitted. Not of them finding me. I'm scared of who I'm becoming. Of accepting that this is my life now. You're becoming someone who survives, he said quietly. There's no shame in that. I lost everything. No. You lost things. There's a difference. He turned to face me. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but things can be replaced. Your life can't. Your safety can't. And as long as you're under my protection, both of those are guaranteed. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd opened his home to a stranger, who'd promised to keep me safe without asking for anything in return, whose daughter treated me like I belonged here. He wasn't a white knight. He operated outside the law, probably did things I'd rather not know about. But he was also the only person standing between me and the people who'd just destroyed my home. How long? I asked. How long until this is over? I don't know. But however long it takes, we'll figure it out. Together. The promise should have felt empty. Instead, sitting in that garden with smoke still rising from my apartment building miles away, it felt like the only solid thing I had left to hold on to. 2 weeks felt like 2 months when you were living in someone else's fortress. I'd established a routine of sorts. Mornings spent reviewing public financial records on the laptop Anthony had provided. Afternoons helping Lily with homework, or walking the grounds under the watchful eyes of security. Evenings pretending I belonged at dinner tables set with china worth more than my college tuition. The investigation had become my anchor. Without it, I'd have gone mad staring at the walls of my beautiful prison. I'd reconstructed most of my research from memory, cross-referencing public databases, building spreadsheets that tracked money flowing through shell companies like water through a sieve. The patterns were still there, hidden beneath layers of legitimate business transactions, waiting for someone to connect the dots. It was a Thursday morning, gray November light filtering through my windows, when I found it. The connection I'd been searching for without realizing it existed. 3 shell companies I'd been tracking for months, the ones moving money between construction contracts and offshore accounts, all shared the same registered agent, a law firm in the Cayman Islands that specialized in corporate anonymity. Nothing unusual about that. But when I dug deeper into the firm's client list, using a public registry that most people didn't know existed, I found something that made my stomach drop. The same law firm represented 5 other companies. Companies that, according to federal filings, were owned by the O'Sullivan family. My hands froze over the keyboard. I read the information 3 times, certain I'd made a mistake. But the data didn't lie. The shell companies I'd been investigating weren't just connected to political corruption. They were part of a much larger operation designed to move money while simultaneously building a false paper trail that pointed directly at Anthony Caruso's legitimate businesses. Jesus, I breathed. This wasn't about construction fraud. This was financial warfare. I spent the next hour tracing connections, following money from O'Sullivan-owned entities through the shell companies and into accounts that had been frozen by federal investigators, accounts that belonged to Anthony's import business. The whole thing was elegant in its cruelty. Use shell companies to launder O'Sullivan money while creating documentation that made it look like Anthony was the one laundering funds. My investigation had threatened to expose the scheme before it could be fully executed. That's why they'd tried to kill me. Not because I was getting close to exposing political corruption, but because I was about to blow open a setup that had probably taken years to construct. I needed to tell Anthony. But doubt crept in, whispering questions I didn't want to ask. What if I was wrong? What if showing him this information made me look like I was taking sides in something I didn't fully understand? What if he already knew, and my bringing it up exposed me as naive? The internal debate kept me paralyzed at my laptop for another hour, staring at numbers that told a story I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of. Finally, I saved everything to an encrypted folder and went downstairs, my heart hammering against my ribs. I found Anthony in his office, but he wasn't alone. Through the partially open door, I could see 3 men in dark suits seated across from him. One I recognized as Marcus. The other 2 were unfamiliar, but they carried themselves with the same controlled tension as Anthony's security team. The accounts were frozen yesterday, one of the unfamiliar men was saying. His voice carried an edge of frustration. No warning, no explanation. Federal investigators just locked down $3 million in operating capital. Vincent, I need specifics. Anthony's voice was cold, controlled. Which accounts? Which investigators? The import business, the wine distribution, and the restaurant group. All of them flagged for suspicious activity. Vincent, a man in his early 40s with salt and pepper hair and a face that suggested he'd seen too much, pulled out a tablet. They're claiming evidence of money laundering. Wire transfers that match patterns of criminal activity. That's impossible. Anthony's hand curled into a fist on his desk. Every transaction through those businesses is documented, legitimate, and above board. I make damn sure of that. Someone's planting evidence, Marcus said quietly. Has to be. The timing's too convenient. Right after they failed to take you out. I should have walked away. Should have gone back upstairs and waited for a better time. Instead, I knocked on the door frame. All 4 men turned to look at me. Anthony's expression shifted from cold fury to something more guarded. Jessica, this isn't a good time. I know, but I found something. Something you need to see. I held up the laptop. About the accounts being frozen. And who's really behind it. Vincent stood, his hand moving toward his jacket in a gesture that made my pulse spike. Anthony held up one hand. It's fine. She's the journalist I mentioned. The one investigating the construction fraud. He looked at me. What did you find? I moved into the office, aware of 3 sets of eyes tracking my movements. Setting the laptop on Anthony's desk, I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created. The shell companies I was investigating. The ones moving money through construction contracts. They're all registered through the same law firm as 5 companies owned by the O'Sullivan family. Silence. Then Vincent leaned forward. Show me. I walked them through it, pointing out connections, tracing money flows, demonstrating how funds moved from O'Sullivan operations through the shell companies and into accounts designed to look like they belonged to Anthony's businesses. With each new piece of evidence, Vincent's expression grew darker. They're framing you, I said, looking at Anthony. Building a case using money laundering infrastructure they control, making it look like you're the one running illegal operations. My investigation threatened to expose the shell companies before they could fully execute the setup. Anthony stared at the screen, his jaw working. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. How long has this been running? Based on the corporate filings? At least 18 months, maybe longer. I scrolled through more data. They've been patient, building layer upon layer of false documentation. If federal investigators follow the money without understanding the full picture, it leads straight to you. Son of a bitch. Vincent slammed his palm against the desk. Patrick O'Sullivan's been playing us for over a year. And we didn't see it. Anthony's hands were flat on the desk, his knuckles white. Because we were looking for direct threats, not financial sabotage. Marcus spoke up. This changes things. If we can prove the setup, we can clear the accounts and go after O'Sullivan for the frame job. We need more than spreadsheets, Vincent said, looking at me. Can you prove the connection? Hard evidence that would hold up in court? Some of it's public record. The corporate registrations, the filings, the paper trail through the Cayman firm. But proving deliberate intent to frame Anthony? I shook my head. That would require access to internal O'Sullivan communications. Emails, text messages, recorded conversations, things I can't get from public databases. Anthony was quiet, his gaze moving from the laptop screen to me and back again. You figured this out in 2 weeks, working from memory, with limited resources. I had motivation. I met his eyes. They tried to kill me because of this. I wanted to understand why. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition that I was more than just a civilian he was protecting. Vincent, I want a full audit of every account they've touched. Marcus, pull surveillance on known O'Sullivan associates. If they're running this operation, someone's been making regular contact with the shell companies. On it. Both men stood, clearly dismissed. After they left, Anthony gestured for me to close the door. When we were alone, he moved around the desk to lean against it, arms crossed. You could have kept this to yourself. Used it for your story. Exposed both sides of this war. I could have. I stayed where I was, not quite trusting the intensity in his gaze. But you saved my life. You've kept me safe. And honestly, I'm tired of watching corruption win because no one wants to connect the dots. You're taking a side. I'm taking the side of truth, which apparently means taking your side in this particular fight. I closed the laptop. The O'Sullivan family is using criminal infrastructure to destroy your legitimate businesses while making you look like the criminal. That's not justice. That's just another form of corruption. He studied me for a long moment. There's something else. Something you're not saying. He was too perceptive. I'd hoped to avoid this part, but there was no hiding from it now. The anonymous source. The one who texted me to meet at the restaurant that night. I've been thinking about how they knew I'd respond. How they knew exactly when you'd be there with Lily. And someone's been tracking my investigation for months. Not just recently, but the whole time. They knew what I was working on, who I'd talked to, probably monitored my communications. The realization made me feel sick. The message to meet wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. They put me in that specific place at that specific time because they knew I'd be useful. Useful how? As bait. As a distraction. As a witness who could be discredited or eliminated. I wrapped my arms around myself. I thought I was being careful. I thought I was protecting my sources. but someone was watching me the whole time, and I never knew. Anthony's expression went dark. The burner phone number. We can trace where it was purchased. Who might have bought it? Will that actually lead anywhere? It will if my people are thorough. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I'm having it looked into. If it connects back to an O'Sullivan associate, we have proof that your tip-off was an orchestrated setup. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number made my heart race until I saw the message. Parents want me to stay longer. News about Chicago reached Milwaukee. People are asking if I know where you are. I said no. Stay safe. H. Hannah. Using a different phone to contact me. Being smart about security. Relief washed through me. Your friend? Anthony asked, reading my expression. She's okay. Still in Milwaukee. Her parents don't want her coming back yet. I typed a quick response, keeping it vague. I told her I'm somewhere secure, not to worry. Good. He pocketed his own phone. I need you to understand something, Jessica. What you found today, the connections you made, they're going to escalate this situation. The O'Sullivan family won't take kindly to having their operation exposed. I know. No, I don't think you do. He moved closer, his presence filling the space between us. This isn't about writing an article that wins you a Pulitzer. This is about testimony that could send people to prison for decades, that could dismantle an organization with roots going back 3 generations. They will do everything in their power to stop that from happening. Then we'd better make sure we have evidence they can't discredit. I lifted my chin, refusing to back down. I didn't come this far to give up, because dangerous people want me to stay quiet. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. I closed the distance slightly. But I'm also very good at my job. And right now, my job is figuring out how to prove the O'Sullivan family orchestrated this entire setup. Which means we need to work together. We. He repeated the word like he was testing its weight. You realize that makes you a target in ways you haven't been before. I've been a target since the moment I answered that text message. At least now I understand why. He held my gaze for another moment, then nodded slowly. All right. We do this together. But on my terms, with my security protocols. No more solo investigation. No more taking risks without backup. Agreed. And Jessica? His voice dropped lower. Thank you. For bringing this to me instead of walking away. For choosing to trust me when you had every reason not to. The sincerity in his words caught me off guard. You're welcome. After I left his office, I went back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, laptop open but forgotten. 2 weeks ago, I'd been a journalist chasing a corruption story. Now I was something else entirely. A witness. A target. A partner in taking down an organization that had probably killed people for far less than what I knew. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in months. I'd spent my career exposing truth from the sidelines, writing articles that occasionally changed policy but never really changed the game. Now I was in the game, playing for stakes that actually mattered. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Anthony. Vincent confirmed the burner phone was purchased by a known O'Sullivan associate 3 days before the restaurant ambush. You were right. It was a setup from the beginning. I stared at the words, feeling vindication and anger in equal measure. They'd used me, turned me into a weapon against someone I'd never met, gambling that my death or capture would create the chaos they needed. They'd gambled wrong, and now I was going to make sure they paid for it. The 4th week at the mansion brought an unexpected shift in dynamics. Anthony and I had fallen into a working partnership, spending hours together reviewing financial documents, tracing money flows, building a case that could withstand federal scrutiny. We'd moved beyond employer and protected witness into something that felt dangerously close to equals. It was late afternoon. November sun slanting through the office windows when the package arrived. Marcus brought it in personally, his expression grim as he set the padded envelope on Anthony's desk. Delivered to the front gate. No return address, no courier service. Someone dropped it and left. Anthony's jaw tightened. He pulled latex gloves from a drawer before carefully opening the envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note on expensive cardstock. I read over his shoulder. We have everything. Every file. Every source. Every connection. Walk away now, or we release it all. Distorted. Discredited. Your career ends. Your credibility dies. Last chance. What's on the drive? I asked, though dread already pooled in my stomach. Anthony inserted it into his computer, pulling up folder after folder. My research. All of it. Every interview transcript. Every financial record. Every piece of evidence I'd spent months collecting. But not just copies. They'd added their own annotations, falsified dates, inserted fabricated communications that made it look like I'd been coordinating with Anthony's organization the entire time. They're setting you up, Anthony said quietly, making it look like you weren't investigating corruption, but helping launder money through fake journalism. My hands curled into fists. Years of work turned into a weapon against me. If they release this, no one will believe anything I write ever again. That's the point. Discredit the journalist, bury the truth. He ejected the drive, handling it carefully. They're trying to neutralize you without killing you. Less messy, fewer complications. What do? We turn it against them. Anthony stood, moving to the window. They think this is leverage, but what they've really done is show their hand. They're desperate, making moves that expose their operation. How does threatening me expose them? Because they had to have been monitoring your investigation for months to collect this much material. That requires resources, manpower, probably illegal surveillance. He turned back to me. Vincent can trace where this package came from, who handled it, where the fabrications were created. Every step they took leaves a trail. Hope flickered despite my fear. So we investigate the investigators. Exactly. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression darkening. Speaking of which, we have another problem. The FBI is requesting a meeting. They want to interview you about the shooting. My stomach dropped. When? Tomorrow, if you're willing. If not, they'll issue a subpoena. He pocketed the phone. I have a contact there. Someone I trust. He can make sure the interview stays focused on the O'Sullivan ambush, not fishing for information about my businesses. You trust an FBI agent? I trust someone who wants the O'Sullivan family taken down as much as we do. He's been building a case for months, but he needs witnesses willing to testify. Anthony's gaze held mine. This could be an opportunity. You tell them about the setup, the manufactured evidence, the threats. They investigate. You get protection beyond what I can offer. Or they decide I'm complicit and arrest me along with everyone else. That's why you need to be smart about what you say and how you say it. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell cedar and rain. I'll be with you the entire time. I won't let them twist your words. He wasn't promising miracles, only process. The agent he'd named, someone Internal Affairs trusted, had already coordinated with the U.S. Attorney's Office to set clear interview boundaries. I would have counsel present, the session would be recorded, and the scope would stay fixed on the O'Sullivan ambush. No threats, no theatrics. Just facts, because facts were the only thing that could keep everyone breathing. A text message interrupted the moment. My phone, displaying a photo that made my throat tighten. Hannah, standing with her parents in front of a fireplace, all three of them smiling. The accompanying text read, "Family time. Miss you. Stay strong." I showed Anthony the screen. At least she's safe. She's smart, your friend. Knows when to keep her head down. He studied the photo. You miss her. More than I thought I would. Hannah and I have been friends since college. She's the only person who knows all my terrible decisions and still picks up the phone when I call. That's rare. Something in his voice suggested he understood the value of loyalty that ran deeper than convenience. My phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. The message was simple. Stop hiding. Come find me, or I'll come find you. No signature, no context. Just a threat wrapped in an invitation. Anthony read it over my shoulder, his body going rigid. They're getting bolder, frustrated that they can't get to you. Good. Frustrated people make mistakes. They also make desperate moves. He pulled out his own phone, typing rapidly. I'm doubling security. No one gets within a mile of this property without us knowing about it. Anthony. I touched his arm, feeling the tension coiled there. I have an idea. About how to get the evidence we need. He lowered his phone, giving me his full attention. I'm listening. Patrick O'Sullivan, the head of their organization. He's hosting a charity gala next week at the Drake Hotel. Politicians, business leaders, major donors, all the people connected to the construction fraud. The idea had been forming for days, but saying it out loud made it real. I still have my press credentials. I could get in as a journalist covering the event. Absolutely not. Hear me out. I go in, plant listening devices, photograph documents if I can access his private areas, maybe even get him talking on record about the shell companies. You're talking about walking into enemy territory surrounded by people who want you dead. I'm talking about getting evidence that would hold up in court. Everything we have now is circumstantial. We need something concrete. I stepped closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. I can do this. I'm a journalist. This is what I'm trained for. You're trained to ask questions and write articles, not conduct espionage in hostile environments. Then teach me. You have resources, equipment, people who know how to do this professionally. Help me prepare. When he started to protest, I cut him off. They've already destroyed my apartment, my career, my entire life. What more can they take? But what we could gain, Anthony. Real evidence, recorded conversations, proof that would dismantle their operation. He was silent for a long moment, jaw working as he processed. If I agree to this, and that's a very big if, you do exactly as I say. Every security protocol, every contingency plan, no improvisation. Deal. I mean it, Jessica. You step 1 foot out of line and I pull you out immediately. I understand. We spent the next hour discussing logistics, potential risks, escape routes. Anthony was thorough to the point of paranoia, mapping every possible scenario and how to respond. By the time Maria called us for dinner, my head was spinning with details. Lily was already at the table when we arrived, her homework spread out beside her plate. She looked up grinning. Papa, Jessica, I got an A on my history test. That's wonderful, baby. Anthony kissed the top of her head before sitting down. What was the test about? The Civil War and Reconstruction, and how sometimes bad people do good things and good people do bad things. She frowned. It's confusing. History often is, I said, settling into my chair. People are complicated. Are you complicated, Jessica? The question caught me off guard. I think everyone is in their own way. Papa says you're very smart, that you see patterns other people miss. Lily poked at her pasta. Is that because you're a reporter? Partly, but also because I don't like unsolved puzzles. When things don't make sense, I need to figure out why. Me too. Her face lit up. Like, why do birds fly south for winter but squirrels stay? If it's cold for birds, isn't it cold for squirrels? Anthony and I exchanged glances, both of us fighting smiles. That's actually a very good question, he said. Maybe we should research it together this weekend. Dinner continued with easier conversation. Lily chattering about school and friends, and a birthday party she wanted to attend. For an hour, we were almost normal. A father, his daughter, and the woman temporarily living under his roof. Not a crime boss, a 7-year-old growing up behind fortress walls, and a journalist whose life had been blown apart by violence. The illusion shattered at 10:15. The alarms were different from anything I'd heard before, a sharp pulsing that made my heart race instantly. Anthony was moving before I fully processed the sound, grabbing his phone while simultaneously reaching for me. Safe room. Now. What's happening? Someone breached the perimeter. His voice was deadly calm, the controlled response of someone who'd trained for this moment. Marcus, get Lily. We met in the hallway. Marcus already carrying a sleepy Lily who was starting to cry. Anthony led us through the house to a section I'd never seen before. Down a hallway, through a door disguised as a bookshelf. Behind it was a staircase descending into reinforced darkness. The safe room was exactly what he'd promised weeks ago. Steel walls, ventilation system, computer monitors showing security feeds from around the property. Provisions stacked in one corner, medical supplies in another. A room designed to withstand assault. How many? Anthony asked Marcus as we entered. At least 8 that we've spotted. Professional team, coordinated approach. They cut power to the perimeter cameras before moving in. O'Sullivan? Who else? Anthony pulled a handgun from a locked cabinet, checking it with practiced efficiency. Seeing him handle the weapon so casually drove home what I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. This man, who helped his daughter with homework and cooked breakfast on weekends, was also someone who knew exactly how to kill. Stay here. He looked at me, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. Lock the door behind us. Don't open it for anyone except me or Marcus. Code word is Raven. If someone tries to get in without that word, assume they're hostile. You're going out there. It's my property, my people, my responsibility. He moved to the door, then paused. Jessica, keep Lily calm. She's been through this before, but it never gets easier. Then he was gone, Marcus following, the heavy door sealing behind them with a hydraulic hiss. The lock engaged with a sound like finality. Lily was crying harder now, curled in the corner with her stuffed rabbit. I sat beside her, wrapping my arms around her small body. She was shaking. Hey, I whispered. Remember what your papa said about nightmares? They can't hurt you. Only real things can. This is real. She sobbed. But we're safe. Look around. These walls are so thick nothing can get through them. We have food, water, air. Your papa made sure we'd be okay. I rocked her gently. And he's going to make sure those bad people leave. What if they hurt him? The question made my chest tighten. Your papa is very good at protecting people. He's been doing it for a long time. On the monitors, I could see shapes moving through darkness. Muzzle flashes. Anthony's security team engaging the attackers. The surveillance was silent, which somehow made it worse. Violence without sound. Death without screams. Lily's breathing started to slow, exhaustion overtaking fear. I held her, watching the monitors, counting the minutes. 10, 20, 30. A massive flash on one screen made me flinch. Explosion. Probably a grenade. Fire bloomed in the east garden, illuminating running figures. More muzzle flashes. Someone went down, unclear which side. 40 minutes in, the attack suddenly ceased. The approaching figures retreated, moving quickly back toward the perimeter. Anthony's men pursued but stopped at the property line, letting them escape into the night. Then nothing. Just darkness, and the smoldering remains of the garden fire. Lily had fallen asleep against me, exhausted by fear. I stroked her hair, still watching the monitors. Waiting. The knock on the door made my heart leap. 3 quick raps, pause, 2 more. Raven, Anthony's voice muffled by steel. It's clear. Open up. I disengaged the lock, the door swinging open to reveal Anthony covered in soot and what looked like blood. Not his, I realized with relief. He was moving fine, showing no signs of injury. Everyone okay in here? We're fine. Lily's asleep. I checked him anyway, needing to confirm he was whole. Are you hurt? Couple scratches, nothing serious. He moved to where Lily slept, gathering her gently into his arms. She stirred, but didn't wake. 3 of my men have injuries. 1 serious, but he'll live. 2 attackers dead, rest escaped. What did they want? To send a message. To test our defenses. He looked at me over Lily's sleeping form. To remind us that nowhere is completely safe. I thought about the charity gala. The plan we'd discussed just hours ago. Walking into the heart of O'Sullivan territory seemed insane now, after watching armed men assault a fortified compound. But that's exactly why it would work. Because they'd never expect someone to walk directly into their domain after an attack like this. I'm still going, I said quietly. To the gala. I need to do this. Anthony's expression was unreadable. Then slowly, he nodded. We start preparing tomorrow. If you're going to do this, you'll do it right. The week following the attack became a masterclass in preparation I never expected to need. Anthony transformed a section of the mansion into a training ground, teaching me things no journalism school covered. Listening devices go here. He demonstrated on a practice dummy, showing me how to plant the tiny microphone under a lapel during what looked like casual contact. 1 second, that's all you have. Any longer and people notice. My fingers fumbled the first dozen attempts. By the 50th, I could plant the device while shaking someone's hand, without them feeling anything beyond a normal greeting. Marcus taught me how to use the camera hidden in what looked like an ordinary pen. Click the top once to activate, twice to capture. The lens is here, barely visible. Keep it pointed at your target for 3 seconds minimum. Vincent joined us on the third day, bringing equipment I'd only seen in spy movies. Earpieces so small they were invisible. A bracelet that doubled as a panic button. Shoes with tracking devices embedded in the heels. "If something goes wrong," Vincent said, his weathered face serious, "you hit that panic button and we come in. No heroics. No trying to salvage the mission. Your safety is the priority." I practiced my cover story until I could recite it in my sleep. Jessica Turner, freelance journalist covering charity events for a lifestyle blog. My press credentials were still technically valid. Suspended didn't mean revoked. Anthony had confirmed it with a contact at the Tribune. "Patrick O'Sullivan loves attention," Anthony explained during one of our planning sessions. "He fancies himself a philanthropist, hiding criminal activity behind charitable donations. He'll talk to any journalist who makes him look good. So I flatter him. Ask softball questions about his construction company's community involvement. Exactly. While you're talking, you plant the device. His security will sweep the room before and after, but they won't sweep him. People don't think about being bugged themselves. The night of the gala arrived faster than I wanted. Maria helped me dress. An emerald cocktail dress that Anthony had somehow acquired in my exact size. It was elegant without being flashy, professional without being boring. The kind of dress a freelance journalist might splurge on for an important assignment. "You look beautiful," Lily said from my doorway. She'd been quieter since the attack, more clingy. "Are you coming back tonight?" "I am. I promise." I knelt down to her level, careful of the dress. "Your papa's going to be nearby the whole time, making sure I'm safe." "Good." She hugged me tight. "Be careful. The bad people are scary." Anthony was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, wearing a dark suit that made him look like he belonged in a boardroom or a battlefield. His eyes tracked over me, not in a way that felt uncomfortable, but assessing, making sure I was ready. "The devices are in your clutch. 2 listening bugs, 1 in the lipstick case, 1 in the compact mirror. Plant them if you can, but don't take unnecessary risks." He handed me the pen camera. "This goes in your jacket pocket, and this." He slipped the bracelet onto my wrist. "Emergency signal. Marcus will be monitoring from a van 2 blocks away. I'm ready." "Jessica." He caught my hand, his grip warm and steady. "If anything feels wrong, you get out. The information isn't worth your life." The Drake Hotel glowed like a jewel box, all golden light and elegant architecture. The charity gala was in full swing, Chicago's elite mingling over champagne and canapes. I showed my credentials at the door, smiled at the security guard who barely glanced at my bag, and stepped into the enemy's domain. Patrick O'Sullivan held court near the center of the ballroom, a silver-haired man in his 60s surrounded by admirers. He wore his wealth casually, an expensive watch, perfectly tailored tuxedo, the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. I approached with my most professional smile. "Mr. O'Sullivan, Jessica Turner, I'm covering tonight's event. Could I ask you a few questions about your company's charitable work?" His face lit up exactly as Anthony predicted. "Of course. Always happy to talk about giving back to the community." For 10 minutes, I asked him about donation amounts, community projects, his vision for Chicago's future. He talked. I nodded and took notes. And when he gestured expansively about a new recreation center his company funded, I stepped closer to examine the architectural rendering he was describing. That's when I planted the first device, my hand brushing his lapel as I leaned in to see the image better. 1 second, just like Anthony taught me. O'Sullivan didn't flinch. "This is wonderful," I said, pulling back. "Your company is clearly committed to more than just profits. We believe in investing in people, not just buildings." He was warming to the topic, barely noticing when I adjusted my grip on the pen, activating the camera to photograph the architectural plans he'd so helpfully laid out. "Could I see your executive offices? I'd love to include some details about where the planning for these projects happens." He hesitated, then nodded. "Brief tour. I have other guests to attend to." The office was on the 2nd floor, accessed through a hallway guarded by a single security officer who stepped aside when O'Sullivan approached. Inside was exactly what I expected. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with awards and photographs of O'Sullivan with various politicians and business leaders. "This is where the magic happens," he said with false humility. "Just a simple office for a simple man trying to do good." I photographed everything with the pen camera while pretending to admire the view. The desk held scattered papers, one folder partially open showing what looked like financial documents. When O'Sullivan turned to point out a particular award, I planted the second device under the edge of his desk, my movements smooth and practiced. "Thank you so much for your time," I said, shaking his hand. "This will make a wonderful piece. Send me the link when it publishes. I'd love to read it." I made my way back to the ballroom, adrenaline singing through my veins. Mission accomplished. Devices planted, photographs taken, no one suspicious. Now I just needed to slip out and I saw him through a service corridor doorway. Vincent, Anthony's trusted lieutenant, the man who'd helped train me for this mission. He was talking to someone, and his body language was all wrong. Too casual, too familiar. The other man turned slightly, and I recognized him from the surveillance photos Anthony had shown me. One of Patrick O'Sullivan's top enforcers. My heart stopped. I pulled out the pen, activated the camera, and captured 3 quick shots before ducking back into the ballroom. My hands were shaking. This couldn't be what it looked like. Vincent was loyal. Anthony had said he'd been with them for 15 years. But the photographs didn't lie. I checked them on the tiny preview screen. Clear images of Vincent and the O'Sullivan enforcer, heads bent together in obvious conspiracy. I left through the main entrance, walking quickly but not running. Marcus picked me up 2 blocks away as planned, the black SUV pulling up precisely on schedule. "How'd it go?" he asked as I climbed in. "We need to get back to the mansion. Now." My voice was shaking. "I have something Anthony needs to see immediately." The drive to Lake Forest felt endless. Marcus kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, clearly picking up on my distress, but he didn't ask questions. When we finally pulled through the gates, Anthony was waiting, his face dark with concern. "What happened?" I pulled up the photographs on the pen's display screen, hands still trembling. "Vincent. I saw him at the gala, talking to one of O'Sullivan's men." Anthony went completely still. The kind of stillness that preceded violence. "Show me." We went to his office where I transferred the photos to his computer. The images were damning, crystal clear. Vincent and the O'Sullivan enforcer, obviously familiar with each other, exchanging what looked like documents. "How long have you known him?" I asked quietly. 15 years, since he was a street soldier working his way up. Anthony's voice was dead, emotionless. He was at my father's funeral. He's godfather to Lily. "Anthony, get him here, now." This was directed at Marcus, who immediately pulled out his phone. Vincent arrived 20 minutes later, clearly confused by the urgent summons. "Boss, what's—" He saw the photographs on the screen and went pale. "Explain." A one word spoken with deadly calm. "I can explain. Please, just let me—" "Explain how you're meeting with O'Sullivan's men hours after I sent Jessica into their territory. Explain how they knew where to attack us last week. Anthony's control was fracturing, rage bleeding through. 15 years, Vincent. 15 years, and you sold us out. They have Sarah." The words burst out of Vincent like a confession. "My sister. They took her 3 months ago. I had no choice." The room went silent. Anthony's jaw worked. "What?" "Patrick O'Sullivan kidnapped my sister. Said if I didn't feed them information, they'd kill her." Vincent's voice broke. "The accounts being frozen, the attack on the mansion, I had to give them something. I tried to warn you, tried to minimize the damage, but they had her. They still have her. So you put Lily in danger. You put Jessica in danger." Anthony's hand moved toward the gun I knew he kept in his desk drawer. I know what I did." Vincent dropped to his knees. "I deserve whatever you do to me. But please, Sarah had nothing to do with this. She's innocent. She's terrified. They're keeping her in a warehouse near the port. I stepped forward, putting myself between Anthony and Vincent before I could think better of it. Don't. Not yet. We can use this. Anthony's eyes snapped to me. Use what? His betrayal? Use his connection to them. They think he's still theirs. We feed them false information through Vincent, set them up, and rescue his sister at the same time. I looked at Vincent. You know where they're keeping her? Yes. I've been trying to get intel, find a way to get her out. Then we do it together. I turned back to Anthony. One operation. We save Sarah. We gather evidence on O'Sullivan, and we turn Vincent into a weapon against them instead of us. Anthony stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then slowly, his hand moved away from the gun. You're suggesting we trust the man who betrayed us. I'm suggesting we give him a chance to make it right, and use him to destroy the people who forced him into this position. I kept my voice steady. We're going to need every advantage we can get. Vincent knows their operations from the inside now. That's valuable. Vincent looked up at me, something like hope in his eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll wear a wire, I'll testify, anything. Just help me save my sister. Anthony was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, one chance. You fuck this up, you breathe wrong, and I finish what I should have done tonight. Understood? Understood. Good. Anthony turned to me. You're proposing we go after O'Sullivan directly. Take them down completely, not just defend against attacks. I'm proposing we stop playing defense and start playing offense. We have the financial evidence, the surveillance from tonight, Vincent's testimony about Sarah's kidnapping. We build a case that the FBI can't ignore, and we coordinate a simultaneous rescue and raid. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Anthony's face. You're more devious than I gave you credit for. I'm a journalist who's tired of being hunted. Time to turn the tables. Planning the operation took 3 days of meticulous coordination. Anthony's dining room became a war room, maps spread across the table, photographs pinned to boards, everyone speaking in low, urgent tones. Vincent provided the crucial details. Sarah's being held in a warehouse near the port of Chicago, industrial district, mostly abandoned at night. 2 guards, maybe 3. They move her every few weeks, but she's there now. I saw her last week when they made me verify she was still alive. His voice cracked on that last part. Anthony's expression remained hard, but he nodded. We'll need 2 teams. One at the port for the setup, one at the warehouse for extraction. I'll lead the warehouse team, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. What? You need someone who can document everything, get evidence that will hold up in court. That's me. Absolutely not. Anthony's voice was flat. You're a journalist, not a tactical operator, which is exactly why I need to be there. Any evidence gathered by your people can be challenged as tainted. But a journalist documenting a kidnapping rescue? That's gold for prosecution. I leaned forward. Besides, Hannah needs to be ready to publish everything simultaneously. She's the only person I trust with this. Anthony studied me for a long moment. Hannah's in Milwaukee. Then I bring her back. With your security escort, she comes back to Chicago, stays in a safe location, and publishes everything the moment we transmit it. I pulled out my phone. I'll call her now. Hannah answered on the second ring. Jess? Is everything okay? I need you to come back to Chicago. Tonight, if possible. It's important. There was a pause. How important? Career-defining. Potentially Pulitzer-level important, but also dangerous. I won't lie about that. I glanced at Anthony. You'll have protection, but this is the story we've both been waiting for our entire careers. I'm in. No hesitation. My parents will freak out, but I'm in. What do you need? Relief washed through me. Pack light. Someone will pick you up in Milwaukee in 3 hours. I'll explain everything when you get here. After I hung up, Anthony shook his head. You're both insane. We're both journalists who understand what's at stake. I met his eyes. The O'Sullivan organization has corrupted this city for decades. This is our chance to expose it all. Hannah and I didn't get into this business to write puff pieces. Vincent cleared his throat. I'll tell O'Sullivan that Anthony's meeting with a weapons supplier at the port tomorrow night. Vulnerable, small security detail. They'll take the bait. They'll come in force. Marcus added, expecting an easy kill. Good. Let them. Anthony's voice went cold. While they're focused on the port, we hit the warehouse. Jessica's team extracts Sarah and documents everything. We coordinate with the FBI to arrive at both locations simultaneously. Your FBI contact agreed to this? I asked. He wants O'Sullivan badly enough to bend some rules. As long as we deliver evidence and witnesses, he'll make the arrest stick. Anthony pulled up a map on his tablet. The warehouse is here. 3 entry points. We go in fast, extract Sarah, get the evidence, and get out before anyone realizes what happened. The next 24 hours blurred together. Hannah arrived looking terrified but determined. I briefed her in a secure room, showing her everything we'd compiled. Financial records, surveillance footage, testimony from Vincent about the kidnapping. Her eyes grew wider with each revelation. This is massive, she breathed. This could bring down half the city's construction industry. That's why timing is critical. You publish the moment I transmit the warehouse footage. Not a second before, not a minute after. The FBI needs to make arrests based on evidence that's already public. Makes it harder to bury. I understand. She gripped my hand. Be careful in there. I can't lose my best friend over a story. You won't. I have the best protection money can buy. I squeezed back. See you on the other side. The night of the operation arrived with unusual warmth for November. I wore tactical gear provided by Anthony's team, a camera strapped to my chest, microphone clipped to my collar. Everything would be recorded, documented, preserved for prosecution. Remember, Anthony said as we geared up, you stay behind Marcus and his team. They clear rooms, you document. Don't be a hero. Same to you at the port. Don't let O'Sullivan bait you into doing something stupid. He touched my face, the gesture surprisingly gentle given the circumstances. When this is over, we need to talk about what comes next. One crisis at a time. We split into teams. Anthony, Vincent, and 8 men headed to the port. Marcus, 4 operators, and I took 2 unmarked vans toward the warehouse district. My heart hammered against my ribs as we drove through darkened streets. The warehouse was exactly as Vincent described. 3 stories of rusted metal and broken windows, surrounded by chain-link fence. Marcus held up a fist, and everyone froze. He spoke into his radio, coordinating with Anthony's team. Port team in position. O'Sullivan's people are approaching. At least 12 hostiles. Copy that. Warehouse team moving in. We cut through the fence, moving silently across cracked pavement. Marcus used hand signals to direct his operators to each entry point. I stayed behind him, camera recording everything, my breathing too loud in my own ears. The door breached with a controlled explosion that wasn't nearly as quiet as I'd hoped. We flooded in, flashlights cutting through darkness. 2 guards appeared, weapons raised. Marcus's team dropped them both with precision shots that made me flinch despite expecting them. Clear left. Clear right. Hostage located, 3rd floor. We climbed stairs 2 at a time. Sarah was in a corner room, chained to a radiator, wearing the same clothes Vincent had described from his last verification visit. She looked up with terrified eyes when we burst through the door. Sarah Romero? I called out, keeping my voice gentle. Your brother Vincent sent us. We're getting you out. She started crying. Vincent? Is he okay? They said they'd kill him if I tried to escape. He's fine. He's helping us take down the people who did this to you. I filmed while Marcus's team worked on her restraints. Can you tell me who kidnapped you? Who's been holding you? Patrick O'Sullivan's men. They grabbed me outside my apartment 3 months ago. Said Vincent had to cooperate or they'd kill me. She was shaking, traumatized but coherent. They moved me 4 times. This is the 5th location. Perfect testimony, recorded with multiple witnesses. The restraints came free, and Sarah collapsed. 2 operators caught her, supporting her weight. We need to move. Now. Marcus was already heading for the exit. That's when gunfire erupted from downstairs. The guards we'd dropped must have called for backup. Marcus cursed, shoving me behind cover. How many? Unknown. At least 5 coming up the stairs. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and hit transmit. The footage uploaded to Hannah's secure server. Everything we'd captured. Sarah's testimony, the warehouse location, Evidence of kidnapping. Within seconds, my phone buzzed. Hannah. Received. Publishing now. The gunfight was brief, but intense. Marcus's team held the stairs while 2 operators carried Sarah down a fire escape. I followed, filming everything despite my terror. The evidence couldn't stop just because things got dangerous. We made it to the vans, Sarah safely inside, when my phone rang. Anthony. O'Sullivan's here. At the port. He came personally. Anthony's voice was tight with controlled violence. He brought 15 men. This is going to get ugly. FBI? 2 minutes out. We just need to hold until they arrive. Gunfire crackled through the phone. I heard shouting, orders being given, the chaos of combat. My stomach twisted. Anthony was in the middle of a war zone because of a plan I'd helped create. Marcus, we need to get to the port. Are you insane? We have the hostage. We have the evidence. Mission accomplished. Anthony's pinned down. They came in heavier than expected. I was already climbing back into the van. We can't leave him there. Marcus stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Then he shook his head and got in the driver's seat. You're going to get us all killed. We arrived at the port to find a scene from a war movie. Cars burned, lighting the dock in flickering orange. Bodies lay scattered. Anthony and his men had taken cover behind shipping containers, returning fire against O'Sullivan's forces positioned across the pier. Jessica, what the hell are you doing here? Anthony's voice crackled over the radio. Bringing reinforcements and recording everything. I raised the camera, documenting Patrick O'Sullivan directing his men from behind an SUV, clearly visible, clearly in command. Undeniable evidence of his personal involvement. That's when the FBI arrived, a dozen vehicles flooding the port with lights and sirens. Federal agents poured out, establishing positions, shouting orders for everyone to drop their weapons. O'Sullivan tried to run. Anthony cut him off, weapon raised, fury carved into every line of his face. For a moment, I thought he'd pull the trigger. Instead, he lowered the gun and let the FBI take O'Sullivan into custody. The aftermath was chaos. Paramedics treated wounded men from both sides. FBI agents processed the scene, collecting evidence, taking statements. Sarah sat wrapped in a blanket, finally free, while Vincent held her and sobbed. I stood apart, camera still recording, watching it all unfold. My hands were shaking. I'd just participated in a gunfight, witnessed violence up close, crossed every line that separated journalist from participant. Anthony found me as the sun began to rise. You did it. The evidence you gathered, Sarah's testimony, the footage of O'Sullivan directing his men. It's over. Is it? I looked at my hands, half expecting them to be covered in blood. Because I just helped plan a military operation. That's not journalism. You documented a rescue and gathered evidence that will put dangerous people in prison. That's exactly what journalism should be. He took my camera gently. Hannah published everything? An hour ago. It's already national news. He nodded slowly. Then it's really over. The O'Sullivan organization is finished. But I wasn't sure anything was finished. I'd changed too much, crossed too many boundaries. The woman who walked into Giordano's that rainy October night wouldn't recognize who I'd become. 2 weeks after the fall of Patrick O'Sullivan's empire, I sat across from FBI Special Agent Thomas Reeves in a sterile conference room downtown. The recording equipment between us hummed softly, documenting every word of my testimony. Walk me through the night of the warehouse rescue one more time, Miss Turner. I'd told this story 5 times already to various federal investigators. Each retelling made it feel less real, like I was describing events that happened to someone else. Sarah Romero was chained to a radiator on the 3rd floor. She'd been moved 4 times in 3 months. Patrick O'Sullivan's organization held her to force her brother Vincent to provide intelligence on Anthony Caruso's operations. Agent Reeves nodded, making notes. And you participated in the armed extraction of Miss Romero. I documented the rescue. My role was journalist, not combatant. I kept my voice steady, repeating the distinction that Anthony's lawyer had drilled into me. Everything I did was in pursuit of evidence for a story exposing organized crime. A story that resulted in the arrest of 17 individuals and the dismantling of a criminal organization that had operated in Chicago for 3 generations. He leaned back. That's quite an accomplishment for someone who was supposedly just chasing a construction fraud story. I followed the evidence wherever it led. That's what journalists do. The interview lasted another hour before Agent Reeves finally turned off the recording equipment. The U.S. Attorney is prepared to offer you immunity for any peripheral involvement in the operation in exchange for your continued cooperation as a witness in the prosecution of O'Sullivan and his associates. Relief flooded through me. I accept. Good. Because your testimony is crucial. The financial records you compiled, the surveillance footage, Sarah Romero's kidnapping documentation, all of it strengthens our case considerably. He stood, extending his hand. You did the right thing, Miss Turner. Sometimes the line between journalist and participant gets blurred, but what matters is the truth came out. After leaving the federal building, I met Hannah at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park. She was already there, laptop open, typing furiously. When she saw me, she closed the computer and stood to hug me tight. How'd it go with the FBI? Immunity deal in exchange for testimony. It's official. I sank into the chair across from her. How are your parents handling you being back in Chicago? They're not thrilled, but they understand this is the story of our careers. Hannah studied my face. You look different. Not just tired. Different. I am different. I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup she'd ordered for me. I participated in things I never imagined doing. Planned operations, planted surveillance devices, helped coordinate a rescue that involved armed combat. That's not journalism, Hannah. That's something else entirely. It's investigative work taken to its logical conclusion. She leaned forward. You exposed corruption that ran so deep it required extraordinary measures. The Tribune wants you back, by the way. James called me yesterday. Full reinstatement, your choice of assignments, and they're nominating your O'Sullivan expose for a Pulitzer. The news should have thrilled me. Instead, I felt oddly detached. What if I don't want to go back? Hannah's eyebrows shot up. What are you talking about? This is everything we've worked for. Is it? Or is it what we thought we wanted before we understood what real investigative journalism costs? I met her eyes. I'm not the same person who left that newsroom 6 weeks ago. I can't pretend I am. Then who are you now? The question hung between us. Who was I? Not the idealistic journalist who believed exposing truth was enough. Not the victim who needed protection. Something in between. Something new that I didn't have words for yet. I'm someone who understands that sometimes you have to get your hands dirty to clean up the mess, I said finally. Someone who learned that the world isn't as simple as good sources and published articles. And Anthony Caruso? Hannah asked carefully. Where does he fit into this new version of you? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from the mansion. Lily wants to know if you're coming home for dinner. She made you a welcome home card. Home. When had I started thinking of the Lake Forest mansion as home? He's part of it, I admitted. I know what he is, what his businesses involve, but I also know he kept me alive when dangerous people wanted me dead. He gave me resources to expose corruption that law enforcement couldn't or wouldn't touch. And he's a father who loves his daughter more than anything in this world. Hannah absorbed this, then nodded slowly. You're in love with him. I don't know. Maybe. Is that insane? Probably. She smiled slightly. But we've never been particularly sane, have we? We became journalists to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. If Anthony Caruso comforts you and helps you afflict people like Patrick O'Sullivan, who am I to judge? 3 days later, I stood in the Tribune's newsroom for the first time since my suspension. Editor James Sullivan welcomed me back personally, his handshake firm and genuine. The O'Sullivan series has already been syndicated to 20 national papers, he said, leading me to his office. You've done exceptional work, Jessica. Work that matters. Thank you. I sat in the chair across from his desk. But I'm not coming back full-time. His expression shifted to surprise. What? Why not? Because I've found a different way to do the work that matters. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. I want to continue investigating corruption in Chicago, but as an independent journalist with my own resources. I'll still publish through the Tribune when appropriate. But I need autonomy to pursue stories without corporate restrictions. James studied me carefully. This is about Caruso, isn't it? You're going to work with his resources. I'm going to use resources that allow me to investigate targets that are too dangerous or politically connected for traditional journalism to touch. I met his gaze directly. The O'Sullivan organization existed for decades because no one had the means to expose them properly. I do now. I'm not wasting that opportunity. After a long moment, James nodded. All right. Independent contractor status. You publish exclusively through us. We provide editorial support and legal backing, but you maintain control over your investigations. Deal? Deal. That evening, I returned to the mansion to find Lily waiting by the door, bouncing with excitement. Jessica, you're home. I made you something. She thrust a crayon drawing into my hands. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall with dark hair, one small with curly hair, and one medium-sized with brown hair, all holding hands in front of a house. Above them, she'd written in careful letters, "My family." Something in my chest cracked open. "Lily, this is beautiful. That's you." She pointed to the medium figure. "And Papa. And me. We're a family now, right?" I looked up to find Anthony standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable but his eyes intense. The question Lily asked was really his question, the one he'd been too careful to voice directly. "Yeah, kiddo," I heard myself say. "I think we are." 6 months after a rainy October night when I answered an anonymous text message, I stood in the mansion's garden watching Lily practice the self-defense moves I'd been teaching her. She'd insisted on learning after the attack, wanting to feel less helpless. I understood that need completely. Kick higher. Use your whole body, not just your leg. She adjusted, her small foot connecting solidly with the practice pad I held. Like that? Perfect. Again. Anthony appeared at the edge of the garden, still wearing his suit from whatever business had occupied his afternoon. He watched us train for several minutes before approaching. She's getting good. She's a fast learner. I lowered the pad as Lily took a water break. How was your meeting? Productive. Vincent's officially leaving the organization to focus on Sarah's recovery. She's making progress in therapy, but it's slow. He moved closer, his hand finding the small of my back in a gesture that had become familiar. I'm proud of him for choosing family over business. We'd found our rhythm over these months. Anthony ran his legitimate businesses while carefully distancing himself from the gray areas that had defined his family's operations. I investigated corruption, published exposés that were already making waves in city politics. Together we created something that shouldn't work, but somehow did. I got a call from the Pulitzer Committee today, I mentioned. The O'Sullivan series is a finalist. That's incredible. He pulled me closer. Though I'm not surprised. You changed everything with that story. We changed everything. You, me, Vincent, Hannah. Even Lily in her way. I watched his daughter practice kicks in the fading sunlight. 6 months ago, I was a journalist chasing ghosts. Now I'm part of something I never imagined. Regrets? I considered the question honestly. The violence I'd witnessed, the lines I'd crossed, the comfortable certainties I'd abandoned. No. I became something more than I was. Someone who protects the people she loves, no matter what that requires. Anthony turned me to face him fully, his amber eyes searching mine. I love you, Jessica Turner. I know the timing's complicated and the circumstances are insane, but I've loved you since you threw yourself between my daughter and a hail of bullets. My heart hammered. I love you too, even though you're probably the most complicated man I've ever met. He kissed me then, gentle and thorough, a promise of all the complicated tomorrows we'd navigate together. When we broke apart, Lily was watching us with undisguised delight. Does this mean Jessica's staying forever now? Anthony and I exchanged glances. Then I knelt to Lily's level. Yeah, kiddo, I'm staying. Is that okay with you? She threw her arms around my neck. It's perfect. And standing there in the garden of a mansion I now called home, teaching a 7-year-old to defend herself while the man I loved watched over us both, I realized she was right. It was perfect. Not in the way I'd imagined my life would unfold, but in the way that mattered most. I'd set out to expose corruption and found a family instead. I'd lost my comfortable certainties and gained something infinitely more valuable. The knowledge that sometimes the truth requires you to step off the sidelines and into the fight. That journalism isn't always about maintaining distance, but about understanding when proximity to danger is the price of real change. Vincent left organized crime to save his sister. I entered it to save myself. In the end, we both found redemption in the most unexpected places, and that was worth every line I'd crossed to get here.